I am Richard B from Richard B Chambers. Can I invite all the participants to mute your buttons, please? Your speaker, please, for our so that we can only hear our speakers speaking. Now, without further ado, we've wasted already 7-8 minutes. Today's webinar is actually not about law, despite we are a law firm, but actually it's talking about the future and what has happened this year. So we've got with us two speakers who, in my view, are very well versed in their respective areas of practice. With us, we have Encik Hisham and Encik Rashdan. Hisham is from Masryef, correct my pronunciation, Masryef, who is an expert in Sharia Fintech. They have been working on Sharia Fintech for quite some time. Among others, they've done many other financial services too. And then my friend Rashdan, who is a very well-known blockchain expert, among others, and he's from Aegis Associates. So can I invite Encik Hisham to introduce yourself and perhaps correct the way I pronounce the name of the company. I know I got it wrong, I apologize. All yours, Hisham.
Assalamualaikum. Salam, as you say, Satu Malaysia. Yes, my name is Hisham Abdul Rahim. I'm a senior consultant with Masryef Advisory. We are a registered Sharia compliant Sharia advisory, registered with the Securities Commission of Malaysia. We've been registered with them since 2018. We provide a whole range of Sharia advisory and financial services covering the banking sector, covering takaful, covering asset management, which is my area of specialization, including fintech. We've been doing a lot of work with a lot of clients on the fintech side. We are on the panel as a Sharia advisor for MDEC, and we look to see that the fintech area is one definitely an important area, and it's for the future. And on top of that, we are also mindful that Bank Negara and Securities Commission have been very supportive of the fintech side, and also the government also has been quite supportive of the fintech side. I'll pass over back to Richard.
Thanks, Hisham. Very happy to have you on board. In fact, yes, just like Masryef, RWC is also a partner with Fintech Booster by MDEC. And in fact, that's how I met your colleague, Encik Hilmi, who is very well versed in this area of Sharia Fintech. Next in line is a friend of mine, Encik Rashdan Ramlee from Aegis Associates. Perhaps Rashdan, other than introducing yourself, maybe you can share with us what is the principal business of your company. All yours, Rashdan.
Hi, Richard. Thank you so much for having me here today. It's been a pleasure. Basically, I'm Rashdan, trained as an engineer, but do many things, as Richard said. So basically, Aegis is a blockchain specialist. What we've been doing for the last few years is basically developing new applications and solutions running on the blockchain. And we've been developing solutions for banking. We have an investment bank as a client who we have developed exchanges and also been developing asset-based tokens, for payments, cross-border payments. We're also looking at developing farm-to-table solutions for some clients. And recently, we'll be asked to develop solutions for, of all things, integrity of the vaccine, delivery chain. So that's something that we've been developing. So along the lines, Aegis have been developing a lot of technologies, core technologies around blockchain utilization. We have our own technology when it comes to crypto wallets, and we're looking at different ways of using. Although people talk about cryptography and tokenization as more like a payment system, but we're also looking at tokenization as also a security measure. So that's something that essentially we've been looking at, especially on supply chain side. Yeah, Richard, back to you.
Thanks, Rashdan. Yeah, in fact, we also have been looking at supply chain, Rashdan. Small world. It's a very interesting area to go in, and I must say while 2020 has been a very gloomy year, I mean, I missed my ketupat this year. I couldn't go to any of my friend's house for Raya. You know, even Deepavali was very dampening. There goes a muruku. But one thing I noticed about Malaysia, and I think across the world, across the globe, was the universal embracement of technology, from a simple usage of food delivery apps to now Zoom. I mean, let's be frank, how many of us were even heard of Zoom last year, let alone use it, you know? So it is definitely a technological change for us in terms of lifestyle. And what I noticed the last 1 year, in Hisham, in Rashdan, is that there is a great embracement towards fintech, a great desire to learn about cryptocurrency, and the continuing usage of blockchain by many industries. So I know the three of them are totally different in terms of their independence of their industry, but we all know it's related. And we wanted to group them together to make our listeners kind of easier to understand all three at one go. Now let's start the webinar. Today we'll end a little bit late because we started a bit late. So why don't we start off by discussing with Rashdan first, your observation of what you have seen 2020 this year about the impact of the pandemic on the blockchain, and maybe your general comments on fintech and cryptocurrency. All yours, Rashdan.
Thanks, Richard. So, I mean, you're totally correct. Basically, what happened this year was there was an acceleration of adoption of technology. You know, companies that were normally, I would say, quite averse to changing, are becoming more easier for them to adopt new technologies. I know a friend of mine who basically developed a solution, and their clients usually takes about 6 months, to a year to make decisions. Suddenly they like 4 weeks to make a decision already. So you can see there's a willingness. I think because for a simple reason, it's about survival. A lot of companies realize that if they don't adapt to technology, use it, they will not survive. Not just in our space, fintech, but you look at the way the entertainment industry, as you mentioned just now, the entertainment industry is moving. It's evolving very, very quickly. New ways in the old ways might not longer work, but I think there needs to be a way for all of us to embrace technology and help our friends in the other industries to use it. When it's specific to blockchain and also on cryptocurrency, as you know, earlier this year there was a big dip in price of Bitcoin, right, for example. But people are starting to see that, and this is my surprise. My surprise is that the enterprise customers, the institutions, are starting to get into this space, and that's what I see different. Okay, if you follow the .com boom and bust, you realize that the cryptocurrency and the blockchain era is following the same trend. There was a big boom way back in 2016, and suddenly, like there was a big bust in 2018. Everything went down, almost by 80%, right? But you see that this year, and even like late last year, the good companies, the companies with real value, are starting to come on board, right? Coming into this space, developing solutions that people cannot live without, right? And that's when we know things are going to change. That's when we start seeing actual value for blockchain. If before blockchain was used for everything under the sun for speculation, now cryptocurrency is starting to become very mainstream. You talk about even banks, central banks are talking about stable cryptocurrencies, stable coins, right? And that's one of the areas we're working on: stable coins, asset-backed stable coins that can be used for different types of applications, everywhere from ranging from the normal things that we think about payments, but also looking at stable coins for the use in terms of properties, for example, right? And those are what's driving, because I think the pandemic, if anything, is a catalyst, in my opinion, right? I know a lot of people are affected, but it is also up to us to ensure that the rest of the population is coming on board. And I think I have to say this about Malaysian government. I mean, it's not plugging the Malaysian government, but I have to say that I respect the fact that they actually thought about putting money into e-wallets to to basically increase the usage of new bot, because behavior change is very, very important. It's hard to change behaviors. Right? That's the hardest part of any human or any new things to come in. But they're doing that. Not once, twice, but I mean 3 times now. And now it's Belia based. But before there was 2 more where they're putting money into e-wallets and getting people to use it. And I think that is a very important development. Because of this, a lot of people are now more aware that, hey, they actually like e-wallet. Survive. Talking about Makcik Kia and all these uncles that never use e-wallet, suddenly like, hey, I'm going to use e-wallet now. And for me, if anything, this is a good result. Given all the bad things happen this year, it's one good result that we see. And I hope that we can build on this as a nation. We can build on this progress. Yeah.
I totally adopt what you say, right? And the keywords in your comments were acceleration, embracement, even the catalyst by relevant stakeholders. That is definitely the obvious, pertinent observation from this year. And I think if anybody who's hearing in today, especially the press, they should be writing those words, because that's exactly what happened this year. I totally agree with that. What about you, Hisham? From your, I know you're a consultant in a company. What has happened this year, particularly from the cryptocurrency and fintech side, because you have been advising on fintech generally and fintech for Sharia. All yours, Hisham.
Right. Before I go into what I feel, I just wanted to ask Rashdan a question, because when you're talking about stable coin on the asset backed, are you also looking to, because that is very easy to make Sharia compliant. Are you looking at that as itself already Sharia compliant, or you're also looking to get it, like you still need to get it like endorsed as Sharia compliant, or? There
are many categories of asset-backed tokens, right? And I think that it's important, if we are targeting the Sharia market, the Sharia compliant market, that we need to get services from people like Masryef to basically verify that it's Sharia compliant. Because I think even for myself, I'm not comfortable saying something Sharia compliant, even though it's asset-backed, without proper verification from the right people. So that's a definitely something that if we say that this product, because it can be a gold-backed token, logically it is, but implementation wise, I think you have to look at the whole process on what makes things Sharia compliant. So that's where for me, I'll be more comfortable saying something is Sharia compliant if it's verified by a Sharia compliant, especially if the target audience is such. Right.
Okay, thanks. Okay, going back to what has happened this year. Again, I agree with what you said and what Rashdan said, that this year has actually accelerated the IT part and the use of fintech. Where we've seen on the Islamic side, it's such that we see that even on the financing side, 60 to 75% actually would prefer Islamic to conventional. Now, the fintech sector actually facilitates Sharia compliancy transactions a lot more than what we have in like the current like conventional banking and Islamic banking, etc., and all that. Because if you think about it, Islam has two financing, two things on why we provide financing, etc. One is to trade, and the other is to create items. You create you create what you call it, say a cup, and then you sell a cup. You don't have the money to buy the raw materials. You can borrow some money, buy the raw materials, make the cup, sell the cup, and then return the money, and then give a bit of profit to it. So if you look at the supply chain, right, it's very easy to make it Sharia compliant because that's a trade. It's a trade. And what it is that, okay, I will provide some of the supply chain financing. You give me some of your profit, as opposed to I lend you money and you then give me say I lend you 100 ringgit and you give me 10%, so you give me 110 back, which is haram and not permissible. Here, I can lend you that 100 ringgit to to help you with your in your supply chain, and you say you make a profit of 30 ringgit, 30%, you give me 10%, you keep 20%, share compliant, no issue. So fintech itself actually will definitely, in my mind, will benefit the Sharia side. The other thing, I'm happy to know that Rashdan is looking at a stable coin and asset-backed cryptocurrency. That again is very easy to make it Sharia compliant, which is very good for both for the conventional and the Islamic space. Definitely for the Islamic space, but for the conventional, you will also have the added layer of comfort that you have also a Sharia advisor that has actually looked through the process. So you have an additional check and balance on it. So it is very exciting times in terms of the cryptocurrency space. And also the other thing about me is that because I did economics as a degree, and economics is still in my blood. The problem with the world, the fiat currency in the world today is that it's not really backed. Some people say, okay, the cryptocurrency is unknown and all that, but the money the paper money that we have stopped being backed by gold. If I remember, during the Bretton Woods Accord. So the paper itself actually is not backed by any assets. It's only the perceived fact that the government will honor it. And the more and more you print money, the less value is going to be. And so the cryptocurrency is here to stay. It's going to grow, and the banking sector, etc. The economy has to accept that. My concern is because I'm not an IT guy. It's more of, okay, how do I make sure that it's secure, make sure that someone, if I have a cryptocurrency, someone doesn't hack it, or if I have it in my laptop and then my laptop goes bust, how do I get it back? So this, because I'm not an IT person, so the technical side is the one that I am concerned of. And obviously, I'm obviously definitely partial to Sharia compliance cryptocurrency. So once there is one, then there is something that I will definitely be investing in and holding. The other thing I wanted to say about blockchain is because to the average person, they always think, oh, blockchain is cryptocurrency, but it's not. Blockchain is a technology. I'll give you another example of how serious blockchain is. I'm also attached to another entity called Hashkey. It's my ex-boss. I used to be from BNP Paribas Asset Management. It's my ex-boss who's Singaporean, who's attached now to this. It's a Chinese conglomerate. Now, this Chinese conglomerate, they actually, it's called Wangjiang. They are and no one really has heard of it, but they are the biggest supplier of automobile parts. So every car in US, every 3 cars in US use their part. Every 2 cars in China use their part. So they're really huge. But because they deal things like with ball bearings, etc., and all that, no one's heard of them. Now, they have a financial arm. Their financial arm invested in Ethereum very early on, about 2005. Sorry, 2008. I think it was 2008, 2009. And a few years after that, when Ethereum went up, they actually cashed out a portion. So they have about 250 million US that they're actually investing in blockchain technology. And their blockchain technology is not just like cryptocurrency or just investing in blockchain technology. They're looking at blockchain technology to improve like the supply line of their factories. And on top of that, they are also looking at producing a fungible loyalty token that for consumers in China, when they come to the region, come to Malaysia, Singapore, and all that, they can actually use that token to purchase stuff, etc. And then they will look to also have an exchange to settle it. And that again is on blockchain technology. So we're not just talking about just people in IT doing it. We're talking about people who are in the hard economy
Mm.
are also looking at blockchain.
Yeah, definitely it's something I recall when I first heard about blockchain 4 years ago. It was so intriguing to the point of being bewildering to even believe that such a thing can exist and can be so secure. But there you go. You see, even a automotive company can embrace it, isn't it? And why shouldn't we? So moving on from there, Rashdan, what do you see next year? Yeah, I mean, we are just a few days away from 2021. I think many of us can't wait for 2020 to go away. I think the running joke in Malaysia, which is quite a stale joke by now, is everyone thought this year will be Wawasan 2020. In fact, it's more like kehidupan 2020 just to survive this year.
Right.
In 10 days' time, we are stepping into the new year.
Mm-hmm.
What are your plans pertaining to the technological areas that you're involved? Maybe you would like to share with us.
Sure. It's interesting that Hisham mentioned about his experience as a consumer using cryptocurrency. I mean, that's basically the thing, right? I think that the key issue here is when it comes to blockchain or fintech that's based on the blockchain technology, i.e., the cryptocurrency version, is about how do you have the next billion people onto this blockchain based fintech, because it's not simple. And I think before this is something that is not intuitive, right? You have the issues of private key and public keys, and everyone's confused. Unless you are someone who's really involved in it, you can't just come in and do it. So I think the challenge, and for me personally, my opportunity that I see is how do I get the next billion people onto cryptocurrency? How do I get more people to be able to invest or at least use cryptocurrencies, to be able to transfer funds, across using cryptocurrencies? So how do you manage in such a way that if someone loses their computer or loses their key, they won't be able to lose 10 million ringgit worth of the investment inside there. And right now there's not compelling solutions Luno is one that comes to mind, but those are limitations. They are basically just an exchange and a wallet. So how do you use that? How would you develop something that can be more user friendly? So on one side is the user side, right? And also on the other side is the price punya portion. And I'm really intrigued, and also this is a big opportunity on how do I get more enterprises to adopt the usage of crypto-based fintech and also blockchain, right? And you see Malaysia is always lagging by maybe a year or two. If you look at the way the US is going, some mutual funds, I think Fidelity Mutual is already investing some of the assets already into cryptocurrency. You're looking at people hedging their bets on the dollar against using Bitcoin, for example. It used to be that Bitcoin has a very negative connotation, because a simple fact that and in terms of cryptocurrency, because people were speculating on it too much before this, right? There's no fundamental to it. But now you're looking at macam Hisham was saying, if go against something like fiat currency like US, which is trillions of dollars of printing, versus something that is a fixed number of, regardless of how you do it, it's going to be a fixed number of of Bitcoins out there, or a fixed number of certain cryptocurrency out there. You cannot have more, because that's it's part of the code that's been developed since 2009, right? So you can't really change that. You can't change that. It's impossible to change. So those are things I'm looking at. How can, on the one side you have a consumer portion, how can there's more adoption on the consumer side, make it more seamless, make it more banking or crypto like or fintech like, something that we're familiar with, making it almost invisible to the client, to the customer, that hey, beneath all this is a whole bunch of complex algorithms and private key, whatever. They don't want to know all that. All they want to see is a nice interface that gives them a solution. And on one side is getting more institutions to adopt the blockchain in such a way that it will basically enhance their business processes, their business model, right? I think you look at nowadays when it comes to let's say simply content distribution. this is another hot area because piracy is rampant, right? With the advent of streaming, now you get high quality videos on the same day that it comes out on streaming, right? So how, one way or another, something is going to give, something is going to come where people are not going to use Disney Plus and Netflix and WB and HBO Go. They don't want to subscribe to these 20 things, but one day, and someone's going to come up with, hey, how do I ensure that I can get access to all this, but in piecemeal? I don't want to watch all these programs. Right now, this studios are not feeling a pinch yet, right? Because they are starting out and they're getting everyone still in. But one point or another, people will say, I'm not going to pay 200 ringgit per month for just having access to all this. So that's why you start pirating on BitTorrent lah. I think BitTorrent pay access, if you look at the data, is going up. But how do you monetize that? How do you make sure that every single one of this content is going to be addressed directly as revenue to the studio that makes it, right? So that's the kind of things that we're looking at when it comes to different adoptions of blockchain, to ensure new business models are created.
Well, you got a good future ahead, literally.
Oh, yeah, hopefully. Inshallah.
It's absolute uncharted territories. I think
right.
Blockchain, I know you are very into blockchain, Rashdan, and
right.
of course crypto. This too is the world is an oyster, and even as lawyers, we are trying. We are every day we learn something new, and then tomorrow we find out it's obsolete. So we have to always constantly keep in track with the technology in order to give accurate legal advice. Yeah. But one thing for sure we notice is what I advised last year is different from this year.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we have to continue evolving. I will keep an eye on your growth.
Thank you, bro.
Can learn. All right. What about you, Hisham? What are the plans for Masryef next year? I'm sure it's not just about Sharia Fintech. I'm sure there are other financial aspects that you guys are planning for next year. What do you think will happen next year?
Well, on the fintech side, we are the leading Sharia advisor on fintech in Malaysia. So that will still continue. There is still a lot of work to be done in this space because there's a lot more, even in the traditional space, even like for ECF. Now that we have a few Sharia compliant P2P providers, but the ECF, which is something that is a lot easier also to make it Sharia compliant, we only have like 1 or 2 players. We see that, like I said, anything that does with trade or building things can be Sharia compliant, and so with technology, we are going to be far more easier for us to get the services right up to the end users rather than using like intermediary like a bank or something like that. So so this is the way that's going to go forward. The brick and mortar banks have to evolve. They have to embrace technology. The digital banking licenses are going to come. Singapore already has even giving it like to Grab, so they're not giving it to just any just only banks. And so to capture the space, they have to evolve, and also it's also about building Sharia compliant products that are within the fintech space. And like I said, it can be done very easily. Even like like I mentioned about the supply chain financing, you already have the process there. All you need to do is you need financing. You just give me a bit of the profit that you're going to take, and the risk is also mitigated because, especially if you have a supplier or the buyer that is established, and such as you have like say Westport, so then it's secure. You don't take such a big risk.
Yeah. One thing, Hisham, I like what you said about the. I use the word internet banking in the general sense, right? But once I think soon we'll have a world bank on the internet with with the way things are going, we may not even have to actually step into a physical bank to apply for loans or etc. etc. You know, and this is to me that is the biggest disruption ever in the financial institution. And like think about it, 10 years ago, Rashdan and you were carrying a thumb drive, and then maybe 7, 8 years ago you switched to Dropbox, and then 4 or 5 years ago you realized there's this Google Drive, and then now we are virtually sharing documents. We're even using WhatsApp to archive our documents. So if that is just maintaining our records, kan? So look at finance. With the inevitable arrival of 5G network, how can we stop, right, the fintech going towards a worldwide banking internet? So I foresee next year could be the beginning of that, and I think even Alibaba wanted to go in, and Jack Ma wanted to open his own one, which has been stopped now for now. So what do you think about it, Hisham?
I mean, it's already here. You have a bank in UK that is purely digital. There was supposed to be a purely digital bank in Middle East. I'm not too sure in Dubai, but I'm not too sure whether that was launched already. So it's already here. And the cryptocurrency is actually a worldwide currency, because anybody can buy into it, can invest into it, can use it. And like Rashdan said, more and more enterprises are also coming onto it. So all of this is actually disrupting the whole banking sector as we know it. And on top of that, also the asset management sector is also being disrupted. Things like Whitehead Invest that is here, that the stash away, they invest in ETFs. Again, you don't need to go and unit trust agent doesn't need to come to you anymore. You just do it on your phone.
Yeah. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, they just as a capture the discussion so far before we move on to the next section. Number one, of course, I will please feel free to post any questions under the chat box below the screen. And for those of you who are watching us live on Facebook, I'll try to go to our Facebook page later to check on your queries or comments, if any. Now, so far, our two speakers have shared their observations of this year, what's happened this year. There's totally, absolutely, there's a change in the way we look at technology, this particular part of technology. There is a effective embracement of the technology. And looking forward next year, both gentlemen have already foresee a greater impact in changes. And Hisham and I just had a chat about internet, virtual banking, online banking, digital banking, they call it, whatever. It's definitely going to happen. So moving on, maybe Rashdan, do you have anything else you want to say about this area of world banking, digital finance?
Yeah, I mean I've been front row on this because we do one of our clients does trade settlement, right? So I think it's the interest of any nation to basically wall garden its finances. Yeah, I think that's the biggest problem that we face as any organization using cryptocurrency for trade settlement, because that's the way that governments want it, right? But as Hisham mentioned before, cryptocurrency itself, the crypto itself cannot be, it's borderless, because in anywhere you are, you're transferring it. There's not like a gateway or any central bank that's doing that. And I feel that there will be a situation in the next couple of years where, although regulations will be tighter, I think you're starting to see tighter regulations because the central banks of the world want to get into this piece of action of the digital assets, also digital currencies.
Yeah.
Is that local usage will increase. Right now it's very much is under the ground, but I think that in the next couple of years, when technology becomes more adapted to consumers, and you will start seeing the use of cryptocurrencies, whether it's sanctioned or not, to be used in multiple guises, to be used on a daily basis. They might not be seen as assets or coins or tokens or whatever, but you start seeing them being used, but in ways that it's not regulated, right? And that's when I think adoption of crypto-based fintech is going to be shooting up. And then you start seeing government saying, hey, there's no way that we can control this. So it's more probable that they will basically get into the game more quickly.
In fact, both Hisham's colleagues and myself in Fintech booth, we have been involved heavily in the regulatory aspects, advising on regulation on Fintech. It's huge. We need to gain the trust of the community. Already, I see a comment here of one of our listeners, viewers here, who informed us that I think she was unfortunately scammed by crypto. We're going to go through that question later.
Sure. Yeah.
But the whole idea, I think, now is to gain the trust of the public and to feel confident in it. And then from there, we can see that our government and any major government in the world, they have been investing heavily into making people trust the system. And in the recent budget, our current government had already approached the area quite seriously. For example, there have been a pledge to contribute 50 million in the P2P lending. There have been references to investment by the government for blockchain and more fintech technologies. So clearly, even our government of Malaysia is investing into this. What do you think about this, Hisham? Looking at the trend of the government investing into this, of course, I think we all welcome it. But if you are going to meet the Minister of Finance tomorrow, what are the kind of things you're going to comment to him to say, maybe you should be careful with this, maybe you should invest in that? What would you say to him, Hisham?
Right. So what would I say to Zafrul if I see him? Just a bit of background. Well, Zafrul and I are actually on the same batch. We went to UK together. I mean, I would advise him that, I mean, you need to put in a process to evaluate what are the right ventures to go in. You have to actually put it transparent as to what are the criteria that will qualify you to get the investments. Because what normally happens is that the budget may announce something, but the problem is that the implementation side is a bit lacking. There's no clear view on what needs to be done. I mean, for the fintech side, it is a difficult area for investments. That I will have to, I mean, because the mindset has to change. If you look at the likes of Uber, etc., and all that, right? They even say in their report saying that we are not going to be profitable in the next 10, 20 years, and yet the valuations are in the billions. So investments in the tech side will be looking more at your confidence of the team, your confidence of a concept, and you have confidence that the team can actually pull it through. And you're not looking at actually a company that may be profitable. You're actually looking at investing in terms of, okay, whether the valuation will go up so I can exit in 2 or 3 or 4 years time, when you have the Series A, B, or an IPO. And then at the IPO side, then it should take off. Because again, when the potential is huge and it's technology based, your returns may not be now. I mean, Facebook took about 10 years before it became profitable. And the thing about all of this is also that it's data driven. What people don't realize that Uber is not a Grab sharing app. Uber is not providing providing transport. They are actually a data collecting company. Uber now, I've been informed that in London, if there's an additional 1 millimeter or one inch of rain, they can actually predict how the traffic flow will be affected. And as you know, one of the founders of Uber left, and they started doing cloud kitchen, because from the data that he collected, he realized, okay, in this area, um, they order a lot of Italian food, they a lot of Japanese food, so a lot of ABC type of food. So he kind of like decided, okay, fine, you don't need a restaurant, you actually just need a kitchen that have all of these areas that can produce all of this food, and then you can supply the whole suburb or the whole city. Um, so that is where the value is actually on the data side. But in terms of like what I would say to Zafrul would be like the three the you need to have a simple valuation process, something that will be able to people will understand on how to apply, and your criteria, and also that you'll be fast enough to actually execute the money. I like this idea of public-private relationship, because I don't think that I don't think that the government should bear everything, but then both will benefit from it.
Well, I think your comments to add layers of review before investing is very important. While we all want fintech and whatnot to develop and grow, but it must be done carefully, not recklessly. But Rashdan, what about you? I mean, I think Hisham shared extensively his ideas, and we know when he meet Tengku, we know what he's going to say to our MOF number one. What about you, Raj? If you meet him, are you going to say, "Hey, bro, stop cycling"? Or
Okay, so I think what I'm going to say is, don't be so tight lah on regulations. Bukan apa. I mean, basically, we work with MAS before apa ni in Singapore, and what's important is clear guidelines, and you give enough space for things to move, but have the right people to monitor so that it will not be abused, right? I think I saw Ngang Ganleng talk about her experience with being scammed, right? And I think that's something that happened quite a lot with the early crypto fintech startups, because I think the same thing that happened to forex, and when people don't understand things and they invest in things they don't understand, and this investment promises like tons of returns, then there's something wrong there lah. But if you look at MAS, and the way they provided guidelines, this was like 2-3 years ago, and on how and that's why a lot of crypto companies set up in blockchain companies set up in Singapore, and the same thing is happening now when you have good guidelines and not as tight regulations, but you have good monitoring of those regulations on what you have. Then you can have a bit more leeway in how you approach single projects, right? Then you look at it and say, hey, actually this makes sense. You could have people who have the experience. A lot of times in this country is that we don't have the right people evaluating the projects. So they're looking at it from purely financial standpoint, purely from a single perspective, and not looking overall, and they're not looking at, say, if an AI company requires a certain amount of money to come in, and then they have to do all this, which is not supported by regulation, then how do you make that happen? Rather than, because we have this I have to say, I mean, like, I have a lot of respect for SC and BNM, but we need to start thinking of how to make things happen rather than start saying, how do I say no to this thing? So there's a big difference, in I think in Singapore, and I think things are changing also in Indonesia, is that if someone comes to you and say, I have a good project and I need funds to come in and I need to fund this, how would I make this happen? You know, rather than you go to them and say, hey, you know, the first thing you say, okay, this one, regulation A, B, C, blah, blah, blah. You cannot. Then, you know, this guy goes to Singapore lah. And doing that. And that's what's happening. I mean, in real life, that's what's happening. And they get into good projects. And we are left with all the tight regulation that we have, we left with the scam ones. Why? Ask ourselves that. You know, why are we still left with all this fly-by-night MLM, you know, companies that's doing all this, and masquerading as fintech companies? Why do we still have this? You know, what's happening? And you know, while the real ones are all going to Singapore, that's something that we have to rethink.
I love what you said, Rashdan. Try to find yes instead of try to find no.
Yeah.
I think we should write a book on this.
Oh, you should write a book on that. Yeah. By the way, Zafar is my junior in MCK in 1 year.
Time to give him a call.
What year were you in NCKK, Rashdan?
Yes, sorry? 89.
What year were you in?
89.
Sorry?
89. 4589.
All right, okay. So you know my brother, Imran Abdul Rahim.
Of course lah.
And you know his
Imran
name?
Rahim, Imran Bobo or Imran Bobo. Okay. You're both brother.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, such a small world.
Oh yeah, there you go. So it's true. Fintech bring everyone together. It's true. It's true.
Yeah. Richard Chambers bring everyone together.
So thank you, Raja. I really appreciate you saying what you just said, because I've seen that personally too. Being a lawyer, as we handle regulatory advice most of the time, I think fintech startups, when they come to us, we know it's always about that. How do I go about this? How do I go about that? And of course, we as lawyers, we are very careful. We are, I think by nature, most lawyers are more careful than liberal. We were cautious as compared to being reckless. But we noticed that even when we want to be reckless and liberal, we can't, because it's still quite tight, you know. But I must say that there is a sense of loosening happening, which I noticed that. Well, we'll see next year. So moving from there, so we've seen the budget by the government. They announced certain amount that they're going to invest in these areas. There is clearly an embracement of the government of these areas. While we are talking about all three, fintech, blockchain, and crypto, but I think the government's investment is heavily towards fintech, which makes sense because that relates to everybody. But what do you think the evolution will be? I mean, that was why I raised the topic earlier, Hisham, where 10 years ago we were using thumb drive, and now we just uploading everything to cloud. 20 years ago, if you want to get a data, you get someone to sit outside a char kway teow restaurant and see how many people order with kerang and how many people order without kerang, and then you have a data, right? Now you just look at Food Panda and Grab Food, you can see the behavioral pattern of people making orders, and then you collect and collate the data. So in let's say in 10 years time from now, as a topic of this webinar is about evolving the future, what do you think is going to be in the 5 to 10 years time from now, from where we are now?
Sorry, to me or Rashdan?
To you, Hisham, to you first.
Okay, forget about 5 to 10 years now. The way IT is going, you won't be surprised if it's going to be done in 2 to 3 years.
Exactly, I tend to agree. Yes.
Yes, I mean, definitely, I think cryptocurrency will become more mainstream, especially with the governments around the world printing money. On the Islamic side, and this is what I hope, and I'm sure Rashdan is also will be working on it, Sharia compliant crypto assets, crypto stable coins, which would also benefit obviously the Sharia space. I see digital banking also becoming mainstream, digital asset managers also becoming mainstream, and so the incumbents will have to adapt or that. In a sense, you don't really have a choice. We tend to try to over-regulate to protect the incumbent, but you cannot do that. You cannot regulate the IT as it is. You have to, like I said, like Rashdan said, you have to, in a sense, have like a sandbox, and you have an overview, and let the players inside build whatever they build. If they are able to build a skyscraper within that sandbox, yes, but you do what you do is you observe and let them basically those who are entrepreneurial to have a free range. The irony, when Rasha was mentioning about overregulation, the irony is we are overregulated, but still we have all of these scams that happens. So there's a serious mismatch there.
Exactly. So it sounds strange. Despite all the regulation, we still see, in the words of Rashdan, the MLMs, isn't it?
No, actually, there's nothing wrong with MLMs, but the scams are the one that's wrong.
The scam MLM, yeah. Sorry, my bad. Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah. Okay, but then from there, Rashdan, I mean, when we had the chat a few months ago, I remember we had a very good, passionate discussion, and effectively, I thought I was going through a tuition session with you on the blockchain. Yeah, seafood for blockchain. What do you think is going to happen? Let's be specific on blockchain first for you.
Right.
And after this, we'll go through some Q&A.
Okay, sure.
How do you think it's going to evolve? Not just 2021. We spoke about 2021.
Mm-hmm.
We spoke about the budget already.
Beyond that, yeah.
Look what you wanted. But what about 5 years from now? Like Hisham said, don't have to go so far. 2 years can change. What about you?
Right. Actually, for me, like it's a given that fintech is going to dominate. So let's not talk about that, but the financial side, because it's blockchain, whatever, is going to dominate. Fintech, just as news was supplanted by online news, right? So, but what I see coming in the next 5 years is that there's going to be more use of blockchain for social, good and bad, yeah, social, good and bad, for social tracking. Okay, there will be situation that it's happening in China already, so it's going to be happening around the world because of the advent of big data. You can know everything about the person, and because of that, you will have credit scores, evolving almost like by the minute, or about yourself. If you think that nowadays this credit companies, rating companies are bad, just imagine you will have credit scores, directly about yourself, and it's on a blockchain. So when you want to go and so you'll be given points just for being good, and points taken from you just for being bad. It's happening in China now. It's going to happen everywhere else, right? So this how behaviors are going to be changed. But the good side of that is also, I see that because now you can actually because carbon credit has been around for ages, but it's not visible to everyone. How do I know that my car, or let's say what something I'm buying, like a Nestle product, what's the carbon score for this? Where if I or even to the point where what's the good citizen score for this? Are they using forced labor? So all this, if it's on a blockchain, I can just scan the QR code and say, hey, these are the labels I have. For this product, it's got a good score for carbon rating. They've been very good. They're not using forced labor. They've been paying the people well. So these are things that I think is going to be available on blockchain, because for a simple reason, the record is transparent. And that's the real power of blockchain, is that you democratize information, right? And I think that these are the things that 5 years down the road, I mean, even coming maybe here now, next couple of years, is that all these new startups coming up, that will be like game changers, the next Google. Facebook might be dead in the next 5 years, because of this, because of the way they're tracking ads, right? But what if a new Facebook rushes from the ashes, a new startup rises from the ashes and say, hey, rather than I'm taking your data, I'm actually giving you money when you provide me data, right? Because now everything can be trackable on the blockchain. What if someone says to you, if I'm using Facebook, I can get money from that, with advertiser. I can get like maybe 2%. Okay lah, I'm browsing for Facebook. My mother marah, but in the end of the day, I'm getting 50 ringgit for browsing Facebook because I'm getting money by browsing that, because they want the data. So these are the uses of blockchain that's going to be world changing in my opinion. It's a social impact. It's social impact that's going to be the next change, the next game changing application of blockchain, in my opinion. Yeah.
In fact, I think even the legal industry,
Mm.
I know for a fact people are looking at trying to put our note documents information
Right.
into blockchain.
Right.
Um,
My wish list, if I have a wish list, is to stop corruption. Is that all financial records are transparent? You know, if you're doing projects for government, you need to be sure that you are transparent from to the single cent that is being used. You know, and I think that's only fair.
yeah,
And I think that's something that can be done, but it's whether we have the will to do it,
will
lah.
to do it. Yeah.
Uh,
Unfortunately, yeah.
yeah.
Well, I like the part about. I remembered when we were getting ready for the enforcement of Section 17A of the
Mhm.
MA Act of 1st of July. Some of you
Right.
may have heard of it. Under that law now, not only if the individual who was involved in corruption can be charged, but the
Mm.
individual's company, the company also can be charged if
Right.
the company didn't take necessary steps to eradicate the culture of corruption.
Betul.
So I recall one of my discussions, one of my colleagues shared with me that blockchain will solve all this.
Mm.
But well, let's see. Let's hope
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, I think I think that's the thing about technology. People assume that when you have technology, it's gonna be solving things. It doesn't. It's how we apply it and how we change the human behavior to make it. You know, I mean, I've been a software programmer for since I was 18 years old, right? And you know, I think over the years I've learned that technology can change. You can have like the best technology in the world, but you're not going to change behaviors if things not going to change if you don't change behaviors.
Yeah.
And I think that's the most important thing. And you know, blockchain is the same way. Any technology is the same way. It's how you use it, how you apply it. Yeah.
Well, we're going to try and wrap things up in the next 5 minutes. Thank you so much, Hisham and Rashdan. Don't go yet. Don't go yet.
Okay.
Because one Q&A here, we saw what happened to Ms. Ng Kan Ling. Well, Gan Ling, as a lawyer, I'll just say that because the matter is with the police, then that is the principal solution for you. The police would be able to handle the matter. But in terms of civil litigation, if you are keen, you can engage a solicitor to try and get back your money. I am not sure whether it can be done. Depends on your documentation and depending whether this Masryef Fintech INC, whether they still exist or they have ran away. But those are your solution. But you know, Hisham, Rashdan, looking at what has happened to one of our viewers here, what are your comments, Hisham,
Right.
on trying to eradicate this kind of fraud?
Well, I mean, the first when alarm bell should ring is that if they are offering you returns that are too good to be true, it is too good to be true.
Yeah.
So you also have to have some self-discipline to make sure that, okay, you know, hey, hang on, there's something wrong here. Then you have to do more in-depth research on it. Rashdan is right. If with all of this in some blockchain, then it would be more transparent. So something like this scam would not happen, because if they don't have the information transparent on blockchain on what they're doing, etc., and all that, then it'll be like, okay, then you know, that should again raise an alarm bell. So once the blockchain adopts it, the legitimate investments, etc., will be more apparent. Unfortunately, whatever it is, there will be scammers out there. So just have to be mindful, and there are. I mean, you just have to be aware. Like I said, if something's too good to be true, you know, do a lot more research on it.
Yeah, totally. Especially now, Hisham, research is quite, information is quite easily gained. And then for Gan Ling, now you know Rashdan, you know Hisham, you can send them a DM on their Facebook page and contact. These are the Sifu, the experts. They will probably tell you whether it's real or not real. That would be a good way.
I wouldn't say that I'm an expert to say it's real or not real, but then but then if it's telling you that, you know, you put in 100 ringgit and you're gonna get 1,000 in a month, I'm like, okay, definitely it is wrong about that.
Right,
Yeah,
right, right.
I tend to agree.
Especially now when you know these kind of scams come up when every time there's new incentive coming out, like you can bring out your apa, EPF out lah. So be careful
Yeah.
about that. You know nowadays especially because I think there's gonna be more of that coming up. You know there are gonna be people saying, hey, rather put your money in EPF, put the money in this scheme lah. You know this whatever they're offering. There'll be a huge amount of returns from that. And but you know unfortunately please be careful. All we can say is be careful, you know, regardless.
I can just give you it's not a fintech this one, but like just I think it was last Saturday. I got a call from allegedly it was a mobile number, but it was allegedly on a from Jabatan Hasil Dalam Negeri,
Yeah.
right? Tax office asking me whether I overpay or underpay my tax, right? And they're calling me on a Saturday morning on a mobile phone. So it's very simple. What I did was I asked them, okay, can you give me your office number so that you know I can call you on Monday because you know hey it's a weekend, right? Immediately he hung up and so there's certain things that you know will trigger you though. Like you know if someone suddenly calls and say oh okay you know I'm from you know Putrajaya police office there's something wrong with your car and all that, and you've not been to Putrajaya, then
Yeah.
you ask, okay fine, then you just give me your office number. I'll give you a call. Why are you calling me on a mobile phone?
Yeah, exactly.
True.
Too dodgy, very dodgy.
We dodgy.
So yeah, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. It's been just like that. It's been 1 hour, despite our earlier slight delay at the beginning of the show, beginning of the webinar. I would like to first thank everybody here who log on, and also the many people who I see been sharing on Facebook. But to summarize today's topic, the two speakers have shared I must say, a deep input from their own personal view, and they are both heavily involved in the relevant industry. Of what is happening now, what is on the ground of the technology, the changes, what they foresee will happen next year, taking into account the government's budget. So you can see the behavior of the government is very reflected by the proposed budget. And looking forward the next 2 to 3 years, I asked for 5 years, but I think the speaker is just looking for 2 to 3 years. I think I share with them, we are all three optimistic that change is inevitable, and the change will be a positive one towards a behavioral pattern change, and the way we become consumer will change. I mean, look at China. I was there for the last trip I went there was 3 years ago. Everyone was using WeChat to make payment. So and we are doing it now using Grab payment and Boost payment, etc., etc. So it will change now. To summarize, I would like to invite Hisham and Rashdan 1 minute each. Anything else to summarize? We have a question from Ganlin again. What are the steps, researchers, websites that can refer to? Maybe we can summarize by answering a question. Hisham, all yours to summarize for 1 minute.
Sorry, summarize on what? I got distracted by the question that was being asked.
So you can summarize and at the same time respond to Ganling's question. She's asked what are the steps, research, websites and authorities to check and find out.
Oh, the authorities is very easy. What you can do is you can call up, if it's investment, you call up Securities Commission. If anything to banking, you call up Bank Negara. And ask them, you can ask them whether these, or even go onto their website to see whether any of these companies are actually registered with them. Especially if it's a financial product, then it should be registered with SE at the very least. So that will be your first stop actually.
Your summary, Hisham, for the talk today?
For the talk today, I said that the fintech, blockchain, cryptocurrency is here to stay. It's going to be mainstream. It's going to be mainstream sooner than rather than later, and we have to embrace it. We have to be prepared for it. And for me, obviously, on the Sharia side, it's something that we are seriously looking at it. Like I said, we are the leading Sharia advisors for fintech in Malaysia, and to me, it's very exciting times because the way the development of fintech to me will really benefit the Sharia, the Islamic side of whether it is banking or financing or asset management. that will definitely happen. I'll just give you a little side example. When I was working for when I was working for CMB Principal Islamic Asset Management, we had a collaboration with Drake University in US and a university in Italy, and we studied the market over the financial crisis, and we saw that even for a conventional investor, if you put 10 to 20% of your money in Islamic, you would have a better risk return uh, for your portfolio. So in terms of how this is related to what's going forward, with the advancement of technology, it's going to be even more and more easier to come up with Sharia compliant ETFs. The likes of us, Stashaway invest in ETFs. The likes of Wahid invest in majority ETFs because there are not enough Sharia ETF, but a lot more will be developed. And then Sharia compliancy investments will be also mainstream for the global market, because whatever it is, irrespective of whether you're Muslim, non-Muslim, whatever you want to maximize the return of your portfolio, and fintech will show that part of that being in Sharia investments will maximize your returns.
Well, thank you, Hisham. Really, really nice to have you on board. Like what you said, yeah. Rashdan, your summary.
Okay, so first of all, for Ganleng, I think I totally agree with Hisham just mentioned. Check with the authorities, SC and BNM, before you make any investments, especially if you're not sure about it, right? Number two is, what I look forward to when it comes to the blockchain space is novel users of blockchain is going to shoot up in the next couple of years, and that's something that we really look at, because once the initial euphoria of about blockchain has passed, and now the real work is getting done, right? The boom, the bust has happened. Now the real work is done. So you'll be seeing a lot of new companies coming up, and we would like to be one of those companies, helping those companies come up, into the space, to build the blockchain solutions for them, to advise them on that. And I think that when it comes to novel users, it's going to be those people who are native to fintech and native to the internet and mobile, are the ones who are going to be coming up with these new solutions. They'll be seeing how things are going to work, the pain points that they're going to be addressing, and we are going to be providing that for them, the solutions for them, and that's where I am right now. And I feel that we're just on the beginning of the curve when it comes to blockchain and crypto-based fintech, and there's going to be a lot more growth for that. And lastly, I would like just thank again Richard for having me here. And Hisham, it's great to see you, and then to get to know that Bobo's brother, how he looks like.
I know. And, I kind of during his wedding, when I gave a speech, right? I was known as Hisham, Imran's brother, until Form 3 when he went to Malay College. He went in as Imran and came out as Bobo. I since then was known as Bobo's brother. Good to catch up. We'll also hook up offline. And see how we can collaborate together.
Sounds good. We'll do that, definitely. And thank you everyone for also being here
and thank you, Richard, for inviting me and giving me a talk. And also thanks everyone who signed in and who listen also on Facebook for your time. And I hope we managed to share some of our knowledge. I wouldn't call us Sifu, but we have some knowledge. But one thing about knowledge is that the more you learn, the more you realize there are a lot of things
you don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Totally agree.
Exactly.
And awesome. I'm going through that with fintech now. The more I read, the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know. So I read more.
Same here.
With that in mind, ladies and gentlemen, can I invite everybody here to give a cyber round of applause to our speakers? They came prepared. They gave me their 1 hour at a time. I hounded them and chased after them. Said, tolong. We'll do. Thank you very much for having you all here. Thank you to everybody on Facebook. I've been following on the other screen on my Facebook live. Ladies and gentlemen, I think there is no doubt that we have to understand fintech, crypto, and blockchain well. We need to appreciate what is going to happen, and I think our behavioral patterns will need to change, or else we'll be left behind. And this change is a positive change for us. So I look forward to the continued evolution, and that's why the topic is called Evolving the Future. And I think the future will continue to evolve in these 3 areas. With that, ladies and gentlemen, if I don't see you anymore, Merry Christmas to those who are celebrating it. And for everybody else, have a good new year. Let's enjoy the break that we have the next 10 days. And let's get ready for 2021. With that in mind, terima kasih. Thank you very much. Goodbye. Adios from RWC and the speakers. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.